370 warships. Mathematically, China has eclipsed the US Navy in sheer surface volume. But the threat is no longer just mass. It is high-end, near-peer parity. By webbing J-35 stealth fighters with KJ-600 early warning radar networks, China's carrier strike architecture has erased the American over-the-horizon advantage. They have achieved near-peer equivalence. But what if we pull this colossal fleet from its protected backyard? What if we drop it into the world's most volatile flashpoint, China and Iran, against the United States, in the Strait of Hormuz? For this wargame, politics are deleted, diplomacy is offline. This is pure tactical math. Near-peer naval power versus established blue water dominance in the ultimate restricted theater. Welcome to the grid. If analyzing the raw mechanics of modern naval warfare interests you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We don't just summarize global conflicts, we deconstruct the strike mechanics and tactical math that decide them. To understand this wargame, you first have to understand the battlefield. The Strait of Hormuz is a geographic nightmare. It is roughly 21 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point, but because of water depth and vessel safety, the actual shipping lanes are just two 3-kilometer channels separated by a 3-kilometer buffer zone. It is a massive bottleneck surrounded by mountainous terrain reaching up to 1,500 meters high, offering perfect coastal launch sites less than 6 kilometers from the water. Currently, the US military has fundamentally rewritten the tactical map in this region. In recent operations, the US Navy successfully neutralized the bulk of Iran's blue water fleet, eliminating major facilities like Bandar Abbas and sinking their advanced Shahid Soleimani-class corvettes. But Iran's threat is not gone. It has merely gone asymmetric. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, IRGCN, retains thousands of sea mines, hidden coastal batteries, and thousands of speedboats and fast attack craft, perfectly suited to hide in the coastal clutter. They are a guerrilla force waiting in the shallows. Now enter the People's Liberation Army Navy. On paper, China brings a colossal advantage. As of recent estimates, the PLIN boasts a force of around 370 ships, eclipsing the US Navy's approximate 291 battle force ships. They operate 3 aircraft carriers and possess an overwhelming arsenal of advanced anti-ship cruise and ballistic missiles. But China's maritime strategy has historically been designed for anti-access area denial, A2AD, in the Western Pacific, relying heavily on land-based radar networks and mainland logistics. Projecting power into the Middle East requires a massive tactical shift. If China were to coordinate with Iran, the integration would be terrifying. The PLIN would deploy their most capable surface combatants.
江南造船厂，总部位于上海崇明区，其主要负责建造生产的军舰有003型航空母舰、055型驱逐舰、052D 型驱逐舰。052C 型驱逐舰、052B 型驱逐舰、052型驱逐舰、0372型护卫艇、726型气垫登陆艇、039型潜艇、035型潜艇、081型扫雷舰、082型猎扫雷舰、22型导弹快艇、航海训练舰、国防动员舰等。其次是
The massive Type 055 stealth-guided missile destroyers, packing 112 vertical launch cells, VLS each, flanked by the highly capable Type 052D destroyers, and the new Type 054A and Type 054B frigates. This forms a nearly impenetrable multi-layered air defense and strike screen over the Gulf of Oman. Above them, the KJ-600 airborne early warning aircraft extends the radar horizon, vectoring J-35 stealth fighters into optimal firing positions. We are not looking at a cheap, expendable drone swarm here. This is a highly sophisticated near-peer munitions saturation strategy. China provides the over-the-horizon sensor network and the heavy kinetic punch, while Iran's surviving speedboats act as the close-range ambush swarm beneath the radar. Let's execute the wargame. The board is set. The Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf to the north, and the Gulf of Oman to the south. In a centralized strike scenario, China relies on volume. They push their massive destroyer fleet forward to establish a layered air defense perimeter right at the mouth of the strait. Under this shield, the IRGCN deploys its heavily armed speedboats and lays fresh influence mines across the 3-kilometer shipping lanes. China coordinates simultaneous mass sortie missile launches from their carriers and Type 055 destroyers. attempting to overwhelm U.S. Aegis defense systems through sheer numbers. But geometry dictates you cannot fit 370 warships into a 21 nautical mile strait. The Valley of Death bottleneck forces Chinese vessels to group tightly, neutralizing their numerical advantage. The three U.S. carrier strike groups, CVN-78, USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-72, USS Abraham Lincoln, and CVN-77, USS George H.W. Bush, do not need to enter the strait. They hold position hundreds of miles away, utilizing F-35s and F-A-18s to launch precision strikes from beyond the horizon, turning the strait into a fatal funnel for the PLAN. Realizing this geometric trap, the Chinese command might execute a decentralized hunting strategy. Instead of pushing into the bottleneck, they split their massive fleet into three separate strike groups to actively hunt the U.S. supercarriers in open water. Group 1 pushes into the Red Sea to engage the USS Gerald R. Ford. Group 2 locks down the approaches to Hormuz to counter the USS Abraham Lincoln. Group 3 sweeps the broader Indian Ocean, targeting the USS George H.W. Bush. While this mitigates the geographical bottleneck, it introduces a fatal logistical and tactical flaw. By dividing their forces across thousands of miles of ocean without robust land-based support, standard air defense needs destroyers to form overlapped radar zones that share data, target, and shut down the threats. The PLAN fragments its overlapping Type 055 air defense umbrellas. The tactical math shifts violently. They are now fighting three isolated blue water engagements against a force that has spent 80 years perfecting deep ocean carrier combat. The J-35s and KJ-600s must now operate at the absolute limit of their combat radius, while the U.S. carriers utilize their superior sortie generation rates and heavily defended Aegis escorts to systematically dismantle the divided Chinese fleets. The result in either scenario is a devastating stalemate that ultimately favors the U.S. standoff doctrine, severely depleting China's expeditionary forces while entirely halting global energy transit. If you respect the sheer tactical brilliance required to operate these massive vessels in combat, type proud in the comments to pay tribute to the great fighting experience of the previous generations and the genius minds of the carrier strike group designers. The impact of this hypothetical confrontation is catastrophic. A joint Sino-Iranian blockade, whether fought at the mouth of the strait or decentralized across three oceans, would instantly freeze 20% of the world's global oil supply and liquefied natural gas, triggering an unprecedented global economic crisis. The lesson learned here is that raw hull count and near-peer technology are only half the equation. Logistics, geography, and the physical constraints of the battlefield ultimately dictate the winner. A massive navy backed by stealth fighters means very little if your forces are caught in a fatal funnel or stretched beyond their logistical tether. Which strategy do you think poses the greater threat to the U.S. Navy? A centralized push at Hormuz or a decentralized hunt in the open ocean? Let me know your tactical math in the comments below. And if you want more engineering-first wargaming and strategic breakdowns, make sure to subscribe to the channel.